Okay, so for this particular build, we're going to be doing the brand new, as at the time of doing this, the Revell 1/48 scale Tornado IDS. Now, a lot has been said since I reviewed this thing a couple of weeks ago about the different versions of them and everything else. It does get a little confusing. So, IDS, okay, interdiction strike. Basically, all tornadoes that are ground attack, seed aircraft, as in anti-radar type aircraft, get the designation of IDS. The thing is, the ADV, or air defense variant, okay, is slightly different. It's longer, it's got lots of different changes to it. The biggest one is it has a huge great nose on it for obviously the radar. It's longer to accommodate Skyflash missiles along the belly. And obviously the cockpit's different, various things, and it certainly doesn't have any lumps and bumps. What this kit does give us though is the base for certain variants which we can do basically straight out of the box. The biggest one, obviously a lot of people have said, is about the GR range, which is obviously the RAF version. Okay, so basically with the RAF version, you can build the GR1, okay, and the GR1B straight out of the box, no problem at all, because all the lumps and bumps are there for it in the kit. The only time it's going to get a little bit different is when you're doing things like the GR4 version, because the cockpit is, the rear one is different, okay, it's upgraded, it has different TV screens and things like that in the back. Obviously the lumps and bumps underneath the front, they are in the box, but the glazing's not there for them and things like that. So you could, with some scratch building, make a GR4 out of this kit, no problem at all. The Italian version, which to be honest I have down here with my notes and various things of it, what's commonly known, and the German version of the ECR, which are obviously the seed versions and things like that. Again, there is some lumps and bumps difference, but you could probably build it straight out of the box. But what I mean is, this is our base Tornado at the time of doing this one. We are hoping they're going to come out with a GR4 version. It'll be lovely if it had the Downbuster's tail on it from 617 Squadron, if they're going to keep it along these lines. I've got a feeling they will do. Certainly this kit is going to sort of lead us into a lot of the versions. I'm expecting an ADV, the air defense variant, just purely because when we reviewed this, the way that the kit breaks down of having a totally separate nose and cockpit area, and obviously the base plate along the bottom, because it has recesses for the Skyflash missiles to be sort of semi into the actual fuselage of it. It looks like it's on the cards, let's face it, and hopefully we won't have to wait too long before it comes out. My plan to do this one is a personal favourite of mine. I love the sort of 1980s wraparound camo. The Tornado came out basically in the 1980s. It replaced a few aircraft and became the mainstay, and still is at the RAF up until now. Here we are 2014 and they're still going. Going to be phased out I think by the Typhoon in the next few years, but certainly it's still a very much iconic aircraft, and one when you hear that big roar, chances are it's a Tornado. Especially if you live in my part of the world with low level and things like that. So seeing it in that classic wraparound camo, it gives us a little bit more options for painting and weathering this one than the standard sort of modern greys as this one is and everything else. So that is the plan. So obviously the big difference is the decals are going to have to change, and there's a few little subtle tiny changes which, unless you're a real rivet counter, you're not going to notice the difference, but obviously we can do those pretty straightforward as we make our way through the build. So that is my plan with this one, pretty much straight out of the box, but we're going to do wraparound camo and we're going to put it into probably, I'm not quite sure even 2 markings we're going to do yet, but it's going to be the GR1 version of it. But certainly it should be a fantastic build and a lot of fun, so let's have a go. Okay, so we started as we normally do with the actual seats themselves. You probably see down here, not too bad, you know, if we're honest, the level of detail's pretty good. We just put this side camera in just a touch more. You can probably see we've got some quite nice details on with these. You know, the overall shape looks pretty good, the level of detail, riveting, things like that. So actually for an out-of-the-box type seat, I don't think they're too bad at all. Now the way they go together, usual thing, you've got the one spine back piece and then the 2 sides go to it. Then you've got the cushion effect goes in with a little bit of the header box. Going to paint them separate purely for a speed issue. of putting them in. Now, a couple of other bits we've done at the same time is we've got the cockpit tub out, and again, not too bad at all for something completely out of the box. The only thing which is a bit of a disappointment is, well, we've got a couple of sink marks in here, which we're not too worried about. There's not a lot of detail going on the inside wall, so you've got nothing in there at all. So it is a blank, and there's a couple of ejector pin marks and sink marks. So unfortunately, when this guy does come into this area like this, as it will sit in here like that, there's not a lot going on, but remind yourself this is only 20 quid. All right, so you are getting a lot of plastic in other areas for 20 quid, just not the cockpit. But this is what we're saying, this kit is going to be one of those. I think the aftermarket guys are going to jump on this. Before you know it, you're going to have photo etch, and there's going to be obviously resin cockpits available. That will really change this kit. It will take it from being, yeah, it's a good kit and all the rest of it, into making fantastic models. So as I said, we're doing this one straight out of the box. Might just liven up some harnesses just to make it look a little bit nicer in there. Put some remove before flight tags, maybe FOD covers, but there again, it's got nice deep intakes, so you don't need them, and a very nice detailed engine, so it seems a shame to sort of really cover them up. Anyway, so what we're going to do now, we've got these parts in, so we can pop a couple of them together. So we've got the rear bulkhead of the cockpit, which is quite a nice touch because you've got the markings down there. So usual thing, we'll just drop that in. And what we're going to do, because it's a straightforward out of the box build, is build up the areas as fast as we can so we can paint them in one. Okay, so we just stick that one going down like that. This guy here is a little bit fiddly. This is the rear control column for all the navigation and attack systems for the Bombardier Navigator in the back seat. Okay, again, so we're just going to put drop of extra thin, let the capillary action do all the work and just whip around everywhere, and then this guy will just sit in. Okay. What I like to do with these is literally bung them all together, and that way you can just paint them, and because it's going to have a decal over the top, you can do that. Then you can add a little bit afterwards if you want to, but certainly, you know, the level of detail isn't too bad. It's getting there straight out of the box. So when you look at the instructions, basically you work your way through. Another thing it talks about straight off of the bat is the actual bottom here. So you've got your section here. So I've already removed it from the sprue. Just being careful where you get the curved areas down here. Opened up the holes as is required, but you have got at the front here this little one. So I wouldn't cut around it too much or anything holding it up, because you might bend the plastic. So I'm doing it on the cutting mat like this because it will make for a far cleaner cut. And then that way we can just come in with a sanding stick, couple of swipes, okay, to clean that all up. And then what happens is we've got this area here. These little feet, interestingly, they are that close to the edge. You've got a small hole on this, okay, you might notice. So this guy is literally going to sit in here. All right, and then we're just going to let the capillary action of the glue work its way around. Around the back. Okay, I wouldn't place it down yet, because otherwise what's going to happen is it's going to glue itself to your cutting mat. So just hold it up just for a few moments until you've got the weld action going and it's holding itself. Okay, because as I say, it is a little bit thin, but usual thing, you know, just take your time. Less glue is best with this stuff. Then once it's got a good bite, come in and chuck a load more over the top to really weld it all up down there. Okay, but straight off the bat, that's a really nice detail. We've got some nice ribbing effects and everything else going in there, so that's really nice to see. All right, so we're quite happy how that one is now. Instrument panels. You can put them in now, okay, and then obviously put the decal in once they're in. To be honest, when you look at Tornadoes, they have that modern, I think they call it Admiralty Grey, look to them all on the inside. So everything's the same colour. It's not like US ones where perhaps the panels are different colours to different areas on it. It's all one colour right the way over grey. It's quite boring, to be honest, but you know, it's what they are, so we're going to work with what we've got. So down the back here, just checking our instructions to make sure, right, we've got to put in the control column. As I said, I might as well put it in now because I'm only going to have to do it once it's all dry. So we've got the control stick and it's a square. Okay, and he is just going to pop in. So we just hold it in the right place. Okay, so that one is in just like that. This camera slightly over a bit. There we go. So that one's in. No problem at all. Okay, and then you can actually, if you want to now, put in the instrument panels as they go in. So you've got your rear one. Just give this one a quick clean up. Okay, a couple of passes, sanding stick. As we go right the way in, and then this little guy is going to fit between sort of everything, so it's on both sides and this centre area, so it's all fits in. Okay, so we're going to glue from the back side in, so the capillary action runs around the back of it, not around the front. Okay, and hopefully it will make a lot more sense now. You pop in, just squaring that all up. Got a little bit too much glue on that one, so just take that off. Okay, and very quickly, as you can see, it's coming to life. Now, front instrument panel, we're going to pop that in as well, because as I said, we're going to paint it all in one. Same thing again, we're going to pop that in, and we're going to glue from the rear. So, a couple of drops of glue. Making sure that's in, and round the back. Nice good dollop down the bottom. Just give it a nudge back to make sure it's back in its position, and we're just going to bring that control stick forward, purely so we've got good clearance between the front and back. And tweezers, and we're just going to pull this back a little bit. We can force it forward afterwards, it's just that I'm trying to find the sort of neutral point for it. I know it's slightly pulled back a little bit. The grip's always the cue, you know, obviously sometimes they're leaning back or forward or whatever, so you want it so the grip is in the sort of neutral position as you'd hold your hand, which normally tends to be just that, either vertically up or a tiny bit forward. Okay, and there we go, that one's on just like that, really happy. And as I said, we've got the decals to go in, we can paint it all afterwards and everything in. So what we're going to do now is just grab some colour. Now, Admiralty Grey, this is the thing, don't panic too much about your colours. We're going to dry brush this just to liven it all up, make it a little bit more weathered, and we're going to use ink washes as well, so that will darken it down. So when you call out for Admiralty Grey, all very well, but we're going to change the shade anyway, so we're just looking for an in the ballpark area type of colour. At my point, I'm going to actually use light grey XF66. It's got that halfway colour. US aircraft, I tend to use XF54 on it because it does tend to be the right colour for it, but the RAF ones tend to be that sort of more blue shade to them. Okay, so we're just going to give that a shake. We're just going to grab a bit of this just to protect our mat, because we're going to spray it right here because it's only small parts. Just move those out of the way a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to grab this. Okay, a little bit of paint just in the old colour cup. Quick mix. To be honest, I had a little tiny leftover little bit of paint now, so I put a bit of thinners in it just to thin it down, because I have been a bit naughty because it sat there since yesterday, but it seems to still be flowing just. So we're just going to start for the inside of the cockpit, just to give us that colour, and we're spraying this neat so it's nice and thick. Paint going down means it will dry very quickly, so we're just doing all the edges to it all so it dries down in there, and on the back. Just like so. The cockpit bottom itself you don't have to worry about because obviously none of it's going to be painted. Okay, the seats going to get the same treatment, so hopefully you get that nice blue grey, making sure you come in from all the angles, okay, especially top because that's where you're going to be looking. There's one. And we just got the cockpit tub itself. So again, same thing, all around it, all the areas, all the different angles. There we go, all done, just like that. Okay, and the seats, to be honest, you've just got that tiny bit in the middle. Okay, so we're just going to do that bit, and the head box obviously is going to be black, but we're just going to paint that little area just so it's all the same colour. Okay, because what we can do is we can pick out those cushions in their proper colours. Now, the head box tends to be black, but it's only the front area. The back of it is just a neutral colour. That's why we've done these in this particular way, because obviously they are all this colour. But as I said, you know, the front bit black, then you've got your harnesses coming down, your cushions. It depends on the crew. They tend to use their own top, sort of, some of them have like sheepskin cushions, some of them are brown, some of them are green, if they're using normal material, so forth and so on. The actual I think it's the actual cushion underneath which doubles up as like a life raft type thing. That one is normally black on these. So as I said, you can make your way through and do them, but we're going to paint those by hand just to liven them up and everything else like that. Okay, so what we're going to do, let those bits dry off for a little while, come back, we can dry brush it, give it a wash, we can then give it the decals over them to bring them to life, take care of that, liven it all up in there, detail, paint them, get the seats together and finish off the cockpit. Okay, so we've started on work on the cockpit. We've done the control grips and things like that. We've done them black. I'll just move this side one in just a little bit closer. We've done those black really just to liven them up and give it some depth. What we're doing now, because the colour's a little bit dark, we're trying to actually sort of improve that, but we knew it was anyway. So what we're doing is literally dry brushing with a lighter colour. Okay, now basically dry brushing, as you know, is just a case of just building up slowly and slowly, but when you're doing it over flat objects as well, you need to do it even more. One thing to remember is obviously to knock everything off your brush, but I've actually thinned my mix down just a little bit, just so it builds up nice and slowly absolutely everywhere and fades and bleaches in. So even though we just had a bit of a slip down in this area here, it hasn't made too much of a problem, because we want to sort of bleach it really out quite heavily. I don't know how well the camera picks these up. It just seems a little bit dark in here today, but certainly you might be able to see there that's a lot lighter. Now we've already done this rear one. If we give it another run around everywhere, you can see hopefully it's a lot lighter than this front area, and that's where we've been using our paint. Now what I've got here is a little bit of light ghost grey thinned very heavily to give us a lighter look to everything. Okay, so we've got quite a bit going on in here, and then the dry brushing technique will just hopefully blend it all together and give us a far lighter look to it all. But also what we're trying to do is give that effect of wear and tear. So obviously sun bleached it, rubbing it and everything else and all those things that go with it. Okay, but hopefully now you can see the cockpit is a lot lighter. Now our big decision with this is how we're going to do this. Are we going to use the decals? Let's face it, they're pretty horrible. Or are we going to work with what we've got? Now I'm thinking here that by using a wash over it to give us some demarcation type areas, by dry brushing and then popping around with a cocktail stick, we can do a better job on the side panels than what you could actually do if you were using the decals for the sheet. Because quite frankly, when you see them on here like this, this is these ones down here, they are nothing to write home about at all. And I think, you know, the instrument panels, yes, I can go with, but you know, we're only talking these guys here, and they're pretty weak. So I'm thinking we're going to do it ourselves. So I've dry brushed that. We dry brush the ejector seat as well, just to liven all of that up, because that's looking a little bit too clean. And don't forget, you're lightening it by dry brushing and all things like that, and then you're going to go around and darken it because it's going to have washes over it. So you're sort of going back to how it was, okay? But certainly by using the washes and things like that, it'll give you a lot of difference in tones and changes in colour, and that's what will help break everything up with your model. Just remember to do the tops of side things, but certainly these little guys down here really does make the difference to have them dry brush, because it just makes all the details jump out. Now, as we're working our way through this, if we just move some of these bits out of the way. So there we go, cockpit roughly type of done, okay, with the wash on it, but the seat area themselves. So what we've done, we've painted the bottoms down here, and we've just done it khaki, okay, and we've got the front of the headrest box done with black as it is. So then what you can actually do is come along and slide this in, okay, and they're actually quite a good fit, these. The only thing I've got issues with is that I'm not sure the Martin Baker Mark 10, which this ejector seat particular one is on GR1s, is the right type of seat we've got here, purely because the head box seems to go right to the bottom where these are on top. Now I'm not sure if this is a German thing or if it's just the wrong seat in it generally, but this is how we would go if we were doing something pretty much straight out of the box. Okay, if I can get this guy in, we can seat him in even better. Okay, so there he goes, he's in there. He's nothing particularly fancy, he's nothing particularly bright to look at. Adequate, I think, for something out of the box, but for what we're trying to achieve, not really. We want to be something a little bit more lively. So what we're going to do is just put a clamp on the side of it and a drops of glue just to start that locking together. Okay, just in like that. And what we've done with this one, as you might be able to see, we've got some wiring on the top, really just to liven it up and everything else. So we've got some lead wiring up here, and it's super glued into position, exactly how we've got on the other one. So all we're doing now, we're going to take some khaki colour, because that's what I'm going to do for the strap colour, and we're going to paint this up. Now, getting ahead of myself here, how did we make this lovely strapping material? Lead wire, okay? Absolutely my favourite for doing this. All you do, have a length of it down, come along with your particular rolling device and roll the lead wire to start with, okay? Now you might be thinking in a moment when I do it the other way, what's the point of doing it twice? If you just try and scrape roll it out straight away, it won't go. It tends to snap really, really easy. Once you've done a little bit like this, you can then start to just scrape it out, okay, till you've got a length, and then what you find is you've got something very thin, just like this. Okay, just going to drop this top cam down just a little bit. Okay, so this guy is down here, and as I say, you can then roll him out to the right thickness of the particular harness you want. So obviously you can look at what you've got down here first, okay, and that seems to be around about the right thickness, okay, and then all it is, drop a super glue, hold it on there, it dries, then you can come along with your nice colour, which in our case is going to be khaki here. Alright, just grab a little bit. We want some nice thicker paint so it nicely wraps around, not going right up, just for the second. Tops and bottoms, and this will hopefully wrap around the lead on the sides to give us our effect. Now we're just going to go up, just be a little bit more careful, so we go right up to the top of the lead as it joins in. Okay, and then what you can actually do is bend that down to exactly where you want it. And the great thing about using lead like this and having it strapped out, to do the metal buckles, easy, scratch clean it. You put a knife on it, scrape it away, you can get the colour and the shape of the buckles done, because obviously the metal colour shows through and it looks like harness buckles, things like that. The great thing with this, you can bend it, manipulate it, twist it, whatever you want to do, put it round and then drop a super glue just to lock it into place. It's done, it's dusted, and it's easy to do. When you're doing it other ways, which we've shown, which is obviously blue tack, milliput, things like that, you've got to wait for them to dry and then do them and everything else. So this is my sort of more preferred way. They'll be slightly hanging out, just be a little bit better going right the way through this one. So what we've got to do is just attach a little bit more of it. So I cut it roughly to the size we want. Okay, then we've got these guys which are going to sort of roll over the top of these harnesses, so we're just going to take a little bit of glue. Okay, we just hold it in position just so the super glue starts to bite like this. And as I say, if you always have a little bit too much, it's better to have too much of this stuff than too little. Okay, so hopefully you can see we've got all the wires on it like this. They'll be painted up, bent round, same with the ones down the bottom. Got to do a little bit of painting on the bottom there just to tidy it up. We can pull them round, put them into position, remove before flight tags. I say 148 scale means I'll use 1/72 scale for actual cockpit areas, because they're not like the huge things you have hanging outside down, just to liven them up, give it a little bit more detail and everything else. And really that's the only aftermarket type thing, not really, I'll use on this one, just to sort of liven it up and make it a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is do that to the other seat as well, get those bits painted up, finish dry brushing this off, maybe give it another coat, okay? And then what we can do is going to have a go with just doing a little bit of ink work just around it to do the demarcation areas and things like that, okay? Get those fitted into it. We can drop the seats in to have a look, just see if they do, put them in now, maybe put them in later, whichever way we want to do it. And then we can come along, there's the bottom one, and you've got the underside down here is going to go to the top side in here, okay, and it's going to go together, which then is quite nice because it will lock this bottom, because as I say, it's a bit wobbly down here at the bottom, but it will lock the two together just like that, and start to get us our tornado shape, because very rapidly we're going to be coming along, putting the intakes down here. We've got to put the wheel well bits in there and everything else, and start getting it together. Okay, so there we go, looking a little bit better, a bit more three-dimensional than having just flat, but you say looking rather clean, especially when you look at its just move this around a bit, its sister one here. As you can see, it's a lot better colour, it's more grimy and everything else like that. And it's exactly the type of thing we want. So easiest way, Indian ink wash, you know, you've seen me do this a million times before, okay, but usual thing, as I said, go right over it, don't worry about it looking too dark, it will lighten, but remember the secret with this stuff is to go absolutely everywhere and just let it naturally run and flood in all the areas as you make your way around, up over the back. Okay, usual thing, it will dry a lot lighter. This is my medium mix, not the really dark one. This is the one I tend to use for lighter work. But certainly when you first put it on, it does look very, very dark, but it does dry back, as I say, and gives you a very nice weathered look. If you don't like it, remember, just pop in there with your cotton bud, wet cotton bud, and do it. So it's where it comes into its own, because when you do harnesses with it, it will just darken it up and make them look nice. Okay, so we go right over the seat cushions, right over the backs, okay, in amongst all this stuff, just down here. Just make sure, as you say, you go everywhere, otherwise it's a bit like the wash. When you get a clean spot, it will stand out a million miles, okay? So just get it all in there, just that back bit. Okay, and as I say, it looks very, very dark, but trust me, we'll dry back to something like this little guy. Okay, now, same time, I've had a go just to see what it's like on these rear instrument panels, and I think it works, so I'm going to do this instead of using the decals. So same thing, it's just the ink, so just pop it in, okay, and then just let the capillary action do its bit. So go as far as your instrument panels are, pop it in. Okay, then we're just going to sharpen it up a little bit. Okay, that's one guy done just like that. This one over here isn't too much at all. Okay, a little bit just down in these controls, just to give them a bit of life. Into the outside, and remember, when they lighten up, as you can see, you've got the darkness and the lightness, okay, but depending on how you want it, you can go over and give it another coat. Okay, so you just put a good old dollop in the middle, let the capillary action pull itself around, okay, and you can have it more darker. Same again, pop over it with a cotton bud if it's too dark for you. So I'm going to give these a couple of coats just to darken them up, but generally I think it works quite well. If you can see the instrument panel, just have one over this. What I'm going to do is we put another one, and then I'm going to dry brush the entire thing just to darken it and then make all the little switches and all the bits and pieces come alive. Okay, so that's that one, and the one on the front, just pop it around these dials. Okay, and as I say, we might still use the decals, I doubt it, after doing this way, but this should just liven it all up and make it look a little bit better, just like that. Hopefully one of the cameras will pick it up. Alright, but again, see, it's drying quite nicely on the front here, so we're just going to pop around a little bit more second coat just to darken it. And what we'll do, we're going to go over this with that grey again just to lighten it all up, and hopefully it will give us a nicer look to this. So same thing again, you can pop in afterwards with your colours and your silvers and things like that to darken up and lighten up all the switches and obviously yellow bits and pieces. You've got your references and you'll see it probably a lot better than you will this. So there we go, bit on there, bit on this control grip, on the base unit, a little bit down the front, just to bring it all to life. But there we go, that's Cockpit done with inks. Don't think we've done it with inks before. And don't forget, you've got other options with ink, as in demarcation lines. Obviously you've seen me do it with the light wash. Easy way, put it on, let it dry, wipe it off, you've got all the little white lines everywhere. Or they even now do, which is needs a bit of a shake, they do this stuff, which is basically, run the right way, white ink. Clever little stuff, works exactly the same way. Pop it in, capillary action will zip it round all the little lines and everything else like that. Perfect for sharpening up areas around. So you can mix a tiny amount of black in with white to get a grey, and then use it for going around things, instrument panels, stuff like that, just to sharpen them all up and to give you a sharper, nicer look to them all. But as I say, Indian ink and normal ink, don't think they're the same thing. Indian ink is extremely strong, very powerful. Okay, normal inks, I've got down here a selection of colours, browns and various colours. They're very weak, very watery. They don't just cover like this stuff does. Indian ink, this is thinned probably 95% to water, versus if it's the darker colour, it's about 90% to water. This stuff is like a 50-50 mix with water to get the same type of effect. Okay, but there we go. Hopefully you can see that's drying now. It's really bringing the Cockpit to life. So which one is the one that I did before that's dry? Can't see now. Must be this one. So if we take our little ejector seat and pop him in, hopefully we're a little bit more livened up, a little better anyway, than certainly using the standard one. So we'll just grab this front seat as well, pop it in the hole, goes in something like that, and we've got somewhat of a better looking cockpit than you might get straight out of the box doing it normally. Okay, and looking a bit flat and two-dimensional and everything else. But by the time we get in there, dry brush those switches, bring them to life and everything else like that, we should have a really nice looking cockpit. So next up, what we can do is, as you see the steps running down through here, you've got the intake parts, which is this guy's here. They're going to fit into this plastic unit at the back here. We've got the wheel well, so we can get those in place, get them glued in and everything else. There's a few little lumps and bumps that have got to go on them, get them in, then we can get the cockpit installed into it and the sides on, and we can start making some good progress.